garden. It's actually a partial garden and a partial nursery. These seedlings came last winter from the North Carolina Forestry Department, and I'm going to be using some of the trees, the flowering trees, in my bee yard. To my left, you may be able to see my okra, and then I've got some watermelons. So today I'm going to be covering the middles of these rows with buckwheat. And the buckwheat should grow to about 10 to 12 inches high within about 4 to 5 weeks and begin to flower. That will also be an asset to my bees. I've got bees back at the back of our farm, so it'll give them a late season flowering grass that they can work to either get pollen or nectar. I'm not sure if buckwheat actually produces pollen or nectar, but regardless, it'll be good for the hive, and it'll be good for the soil. I will mow this after about 6 weeks. I don't want this to reseed naturally because that in and of itself would present a weed problem next spring. So, in fact, I may actually go in with a late season cover, something that'll make it through the winter and that I can mow and turn back under next spring. Anyway, I'm going to get busy sowing some seeds, and then once I've got the seeds sown, I'll make an alteration with my cultivator and go back over this all to cover
it. Cover crops are a great way to improve the overall health of the soil that's in your garden, whether it's a row garden or raised beds. And there are cover crops that are appropriate for both the cooler seasons and the warmer seasons of the year. And the cover crops accomplish several things. Not all of them do the same thing. Some cover crops fix atmospheric nitrogen into the soil. Those are usually the legumes. They almost all build up the soil with organic matter when it's cut and then tilled into the soil. Sometimes this is called green manure. Having a cover crop will stop erosion. It will also suppress weeds and really not give weeds a chance to grow. And then finally, cover crops help to reduce pests, both insects as well as soil funguses and nematodes. Some things to be cautious about with cover crops. Make sure if you're doing a cool weather cover crop that you get it into the ground probably 3 or 4 weeks before the first frost. Most of them will make it through the winter if they're established. Also, with all cover crops, make sure that you mow them and till them into the soil before the cover crops produce seeds. If you let them go to seed, then you're going to have another problem whenever you go to plant your vegetables into the soil. As I was thinking about the lectionary reading for this coming Sunday, when Peter hears Jesus' words to him after Peter essentially tells Jesus that he cannot go to Jerusalem to suffer and die, Jesus responds to Peter by saying, "Get behind me, Satan." Some pretty strong words. And then he goes on to talk about if you want to save your life, you lose it. And if you lose your life for the sake of Christ and for the gospel, you will save your life. Jesus talked in so many instances about agriculture, and he talked about seeds particularly, and how seeds are planted into the ground and they're covered. They look almost as if they're dead. There's nothing there, but the seed sprouts and there's new life. So when I think about a cover crop, Cover crops are planted to enrich the soil, to prevent weeds from overtaking the soil, and they're planted to keep pests from invading the soil and future plants. Uh, those are some of the same things that Christ does for us. The seed of faith that's planted into our heart, it sprouts and it bears fruit. The presence of Christ can help us. First of all, it forgives us when we have done something wrong. Uh, but the presence of Christ active in our life acts almost like a cover crop. It really, through the power of the Holy Spirit, we are empowered to. We become aware of those invasive things that come into our life, and we long to follow Christ. Uh, but we're also open to the forgiveness that Christ offers us. Uh, and so Peter didn't understand when Jesus was talking about death and dying. Peter could only see an ending. He was not capable at that point of understanding that seeds that appear as if they're going to die are actually the gateway to new life.
Now that I have the sorghum sudan planted along with the buckwheat, I'm going to bring my tractor up here with the cultivators. I'm going to make an adjustment on the cultivators so they won't go as deep, and I'm going to use the cultivators to cover the seeds. So with the cultivators, I'm going to need to make an adjustment on the top link. It's turned up. I'm going to tilt the cultivators back down so that they won't be as deep into the ground.
I'm Robert Sain. You've been with me in the garden, and I hope you'll join me again next time. Have a great day.